The Pittsburgh Steelers may have lost their third preseason game, but I think their offense and their defense showed good signs on both sides of the ball. We'll talk about what we saw from the quarterbacks, both the offensive and defensive lines, all here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show in your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a $3 free week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, Steelers fans, if you missed the preseason game, the Steelers did lose 24-17, but the first team offense came out and did what it was supposed to do. Walk right down the field, score a quick touchdown, show that it can both move the ball on the ground and through the air. And it happened for both Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson came in for the first drive, went 2 for 2 for 26 yards, hit George Pickens on a deep ball that went 30-plus yards down the field. Did his job, and I thought that he showed that he could process the field in that moment there, kind of put things to rest. The offensive line, moved guys at times. I thought there was some mixed play here and there, but you had to appreciate being able to see Najee Harris get a 5-yard run in his only carry, and then Cordarrelle Patterson was RB2 because Jaylen Warren was out, and when he got in, he was given a really good lane for a rushing touchdown. Really solid there. He went for 31 yards. And then Justin Fields comes in, throws 3 or 4 for 40 yards. Neither quarterback throws a touchdown, but they make the necessary plays to get their team in field position for the rest of the offense to take over. And I think what we saw was, if this offense was to really, try to put together a whole drive and try to, sequence plays, there are ways to play off each other, especially because I saw on for both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, the play action and how it was used. Justin Fields on his probably his best throw was a throw over the middle to Michael Pruitt that went a good distance. And when it did, it was off play action. It froze the linebackers. The linebackers had to respect it. And that led to Justin Fields hitting Pruitt in stride, got the Steelers, I believe, inside the 10 when he threw it. It was a 22-yard pass, actually went down to the 2-yard line to be exact. That minutes later would set up a LaMichael Pirine touchdown. But I think a few things to take away on the quarterback situation specifically, because I think that there's a lot of different things. There's different sides here with people that really want Justin Fields or really want Russell Wilson or don't really want either. I think it's the acknowledgement of how this thing was handled. Russell Wilson went in for one drive, a touchdown drive, and was out. There was no need to see him anymore. There was no want to see him anymore. It was like, hey, that's all you needed to see. Just put it on tape, put it on camera so that they notice success. And that's what we talked about in the Friday episode. We said, hey, the Steelers want to see this offense score. They did. Russell Wilson was out. They put Justin Fields in. He scored a touchdown. They wanted to see a little bit more of him. And after they did, they took him out. To me, it just furthers what we've been saying all along, that Russell Wilson was QB1 the whole time. That was the plan. Now, if Russell Wilson had come out and laid a complete egg and they'd had like 3 or 4 more drives and they weren't moving the ball and Justin Fields came out and was lighting it up, that would have changed the whole narrative. But it didn't happen, and we're not there. So moving forward from here, you can presume Russell Wilson, as we've been saying all offseason, is going to be QB1 for the Steelers. But again, I do think that Justin Fields showed good things. He showed his ability to use his legs in smart situations. They were able to use the QB option a little bit more with him. He threw a good ball, and it all kind of played off of each other. The Steelers' ability to run the ball. They used a little bit of RPO a little bit with Justin Fields back there, because they know that when he's there, I think that opens that up. I think there is going to be some interesting moments this season, or there are going to be some interesting moments this season where maybe Russell Wilson can't go in a certain situation. Maybe he's hurt, or maybe the Steelers just see a certain matchup that they like and they'll roll Justin Fields out and try to go a QB option in a certain spot just to make defenses think about different things. that could be part of the plan, because I do think that, again, Justin Fields, I think, did a pretty solid job throughout this preseason. He wasn't, elite or anything like that, but I think he showed that he isn't confined to what people might think he was in Chicago. I think that he showed, hey, he can improve on the details, the minute things that people said that he wasn't able to get down in Chicago, and make those things part of his game in positive ways. But again, I think Russell Wilson, those things he doesn't have to work on. He knows how to he knows how to regularly cycle through his progressions. He knows how to throw the accurate ball. He knows how to how to kill a play when it's time to kill it, how to make the adjustments that need to be made, and that's why he's going to be the guy. Again, it's not a slight on Justin Fields; it's an experience acknowledgement of Russell Wilson. But again, in all of that, I think it's a good thing for the Steelers, because you see a guy who's going to protect the football, who's going to prioritize that, who's going to say the right things, do the right things, and Justin Fields can take more time to ratchet up the things that he's been improving throughout training camp and this preseason, so that next year, if he's still on the Steelers roster and Russell Wilson isn't, then maybe he's the guy that has the lead on the QB1 spot, versus maybe a rookie that they draft or someone else that they bring in through free agency or trade. But again, can't really complain much about the quarterbacks in this game, the first two quarterbacks. I'll even say Kyle Allen even threw a few good balls, the third string quarterback, and also J.R. Plumlee. So by and large, actually, I thought the quarterbacks had a pretty decent day for the Steelers, albeit them losing in the end when the third stringers went in on both sides. But again, good stuff from them, and good stuff from the offense in the first two series, showing that they could move the ball and do what they needed to do. Now, does this mean the offense is ready to go out there and bowl people over in the regular season? Absolutely not. They still have a lot to prove. I still want to go through some of the more smaller details of what we saw and what led to that. And we'll address the offensive line a little bit later in this show, because I thought there were some interesting moments that were underhyped and overhyped as far as why things happen, and we'll get to those in a minute. But they put some on tape. That's good. Now they've got 2 weeks to go through everything, heal up whoever needs healed up. We'll see if Jaylen Warren's ready to go for week one. We'll see if Broderick Jones's right arm is better. We'll see if Troy Fautanu can get back to the lineup and how that impacts things. So there's still a lot to see there. But for what was needed to be seen in a final preseason test run, I think that they did their job there. But to me, they weren't the most impressive part of the game. It was that defensive front and that man, Mr. Nick Herbig, doing damage on that Lions front. We'll talk about what I really continue to like about Herbig, about Benton, and Leal, really everyone on this young defensive line and defensive front, because I think that there's something special potentially brewing in the depth of the Steelers up front, guys. We'll talk about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you, this show is brought to you by BetterHelp Therapy Online. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip leg day, or maybe you never skip therapy day. Well, when your schedule gets packed with work, activities with kids, and just life in general, it's easy to let your priorities slip through the cracks. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it sometimes. But when you feel you have no time for yourself, that's when the non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. That's where having a good therapist can help you organize your own life. Not only can you figure out what really makes your life better, you can also figure out how to balance it with everything else in your life. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. BetterHelp knows life can be busy and stressful, so it's designed to be suitable for your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. Switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp. HELP.com/lockedon. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our episode reacting to the Steelers' Saturday preseason loss to the Detroit Lions. And again, it's this the reminder that the results of the preseason games don't matter that much. It's just more so the observations that you can make on the team. And we talked about the offense, but we got to talk about this defensive front, because, man, they are nasty. Nick Herbig doing it again, just being a problem, play in and play out. Every time it seems like he's on the field, he is just wreaking havoc upon the backfield. In this game, you saw him getting after it right away, starting up in the front. Neither TJ Watt or Alex Highsmith played in this game. He finishes the game with three tackles, 2 sacks, one of which was a strip fumble that led to a turnover. He kind of looks like he could start, y'all. And I'm not saying he's going to start over Alex Highsmith or TJ Watt. No. I'm not saying that. My point is they may have 3 starting caliber outside linebackers on this roster right now. And there was the hope that maybe he could get there. Like, he had an impressive rookie run. Everyone's excited. Okay, but let's see how he does in the second year, because now more teams are going to be able to see what he's been able to do. And again, it's just preseason. Doesn't mean that he's already there and that he's about to be an all-pro edge rusher. But man, I'd be nervous if I was teams having to deal with that guy coming off the bench. He's quick off the ball. He has multiple techniques. And he continues to show, even if you try to adjust to him, he'll adjust right back. And he's relentless. He has a high motor. Everything about him you have to love if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the great thing is, you got him this season and 2 more seasons after that on a rookie deal. So, like, you have now, 3, including this season, three seasons now to figure out, hey, if he keeps getting this good, that's who you're going to pay for the future. That's the next. Maybe you have the next TJ Watt lined up, and I'm not saying he is TJ Watt, but man, he is very impressive for what he's able to do. And to me, that makes this edge rushing trio maybe the best edge rushing trio. And I think it's crazy is you don't think of edge rushing trios like that. You think of duos, dynamic duos, guys that pair up like TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith have for the last few years. And we've seen them be special together. But a trio, because I think what Herbig does is he kind of allows you to rotate him in more often. And that's going to allow TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith to be that much more fresh later in games and that much more fresh later in the season. And maybe you don't see TJ Watt get a kind of a freakish injury at the end of the year where he misses a playoff game that the Steelers absolutely need him in. And another guy that works into that equation now, and I think it continues to look like they're really putting him out there, it's DeMarvin Leal. Because when the first defense was out there, now granted, again, a lot of the starters of defense weren't out there. Watt, Highsmith, Hayward. I don't think Minkah Fitzpatrick was out there. A lot of those guys didn't play. But Leal, with Herbig out there, was the other edge rusher to start the game. And he looked good doing it too. I think he also had a half sack. He was getting pressure in this game, and he was also helpful against the run. And Mike Tomlin always says he likes guys who, as he puts it, can do multiples, which just means versatile. And I think that DeMarvin Leal is showing, hey, I can line up on the inside and line up on the outside and be a solid depth guy. And if he's your fourth option, I don't think you can be too mad at that, right? And again, the whole thing about this is that with the edge rusher, you need guys to step up on the interior. But man, they're getting guys to step up in the interior. Keeanu Benton just looked like a force, consistently pressuring. Got a half sack in this game. I didn't go. I need to go back. This is literally just me after the game reacting to what I saw, not breaking down a whole lot of film, just getting to looking at what players talked about. But I think he got at least 3 pressures in like 2 series, maybe even more. But Keeanu Benton looks completely legit. His pass rushing seems to have improved. He's a force against the run up the middle. And I'll keep saying this too. I think the other guys on the defensive line have looked pretty sharp all preseason, and that's Larry Ogunjobi and Montravius Adams. Larry Ogunjobi continues to push people around to do what he's supposed to do. And again, you're supposed to. You're the veteran. They paid him. They're paying him a good amount of money. He's supposed to be good. But last year, he was hindered with an injury that kind of lingered all season. This year, hasn't been that case. Montravius Adams, a guy that they brought him in off a practice squad years ago, and he's continued to find a way to help on defense. And now I think that if he's your 4th or 5th option in the interior defensive line, it's a pretty good 4th or 5th option. He's bringing it. And I think my point here is the depth and the Steelers' defensive front may be a much bigger asset than what we realized going into this training camp season and preseason. Because I think going in, everyone was like, well, if Keeanu Benton steps up and if DeMarvin Leal turn things around, maybe they can be okay. And I don't know. And again, it's just preseason. We got to see how these guys play in live action, sequence off each other, how they build off each other's success, how they, how does the rotation feel? Because some guys, play better when they're consistently out there, and the intermittence of them being out there can mess up their rhythm. And that does happen. We haven't seen that incomplete for these guys. But knowing that this team's going to be playing Cam Hayward, knowing that these teams going to be playing TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith on top of now these guys we're talking about in Leal and Herbig and Benton and Ogunjobi and Adams, that's a lot of dudes to consider for being up there. And then you can still get guys who I think Isaiah Loudermilk did a good job. I think Dean Lowry's a solid veteran. Guys in the interior that can fill up in there and give you just good reps to get the other guys up. Like I think that the defensive front may be in a position where there aren't many, if any, real liabilities in their rotation right now. Like there were years when like the Steelers, they had a guy like Cam Thomas who, I'm sorry he has to catch a stray, but he wasn't a good interior defensive lineman. He was brought in to like back up Cam Hayward. And as soon as he was on the field, teams knew we're running a gap. We're just taking him up there. There was I can't remember his name right now, the guy from Tennessee that was ridiculously huge, Dan something, but he was a guy, when he was in there, you knew you were just running right behind him. But these guys, they look active. They look like they can get after the quarterback, but they can also stuff the run. The Steelers might have that kind of rotation. And right at the mix of that are the two Wisconsin guys, Keeanu Benton and Nick Herbig. And if the Steelers have that kind of consistent pressure, look out, because I think that's going to make this defense even better than what we were anticipating. Now, one thing I do want to see, that I need to see with the All-22, and I want to look at, there were some of those pressures where Hendon Hooker, the Lions quarterback, was holding on to the ball a little bit longer. And I was wondering, is he holding on to the ball because he's Hendon Hooker, he's a rookie quarterback, and he's just adjusting to the NFL? Or was there good coverage downfield and he didn't have anywhere to go with the football? That we can't tell because of All-22. One thing I could tell, though, Corey Trice looked active, had a TFL, also had a tackle at the line of scrimmage fighting through a wide receiver screen. He continues to impress me, and I have no doubt in my mind he's cornerback 3 right now. As soon as Joey Porter Jr. or Dante Jackson need a breather, put Corey Trice out there and see what he does. I think that he has passed a lot of tests in this preseason. And I think that has to have you a little bit excited if you're a Steelers fan. The defense is young. Well, you have young guys on the defense. The defense is not young. Let me take that back. Highsmith's a solid vet. TJ's getting up there in his early 30s. Cam Hayward's been up there. Ogunjobi, Micah Fitzpatrick. They've got guys who are aged, but they now have more guys that are popping up in the younger part of the defense that could make this a truly complete defense. And that could be something special. And why, again, I think this is going to be a defensive-led team. If the Steelers are going to be a team that gets to double-digit wins and competes for the division and gets to the playoffs and looks confident going into it, it's going to be because this defense is just that good. And part of what needed for this defense to show is they need to show depth. They need to show their ability to win at spots where their superstars weren't. And at least what we've seen through the preseason, including in this game, I think those guys showed up really big for the defense. We'll talk more about that when we get the All-22 and I get the chance to comb through more of that. But again, I think if you're a Steelers fan, you have to like what you've seen really in totality in the preseason from the defense, especially from the defensive front. I want to take a step back, though. I want to look back at this offensive line again because I have a few comments about especially the two young guys that everyone's hoping really develops that played in this game, both Broderick Jones and Zach Frazier. We'll have my thoughts on them next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you, this show is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats these days and might not have the time or resources to hire. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our look at the Steelers' preseason game against the Lions. So I have some thoughts about the offensive line. In general, I don't think the offensive line still has been as good as they need to be. But as we've said, they're young, they are adapting, and they're trying to fit things in, and it's going to take time for them to come together. I do think there were good things. I'll start with the good, and we'll go to the bad. Good, I thought, was Zach Frazier. One thing Zach Frazier has done is he has continued to not allow pressure up the middle in pass protection. I think he did that again in this game. I'd have to go back and look through the film to be exact, but at least in watching the game, I didn't see a moment where his gap was the problem. Now, I think there was a sack where kind of the whole offensive line got pushed back in general. Devery Hamilton really gave up the sack, and I think the running back, I think it was Shamklin, might have been the main culprits, but in general, the offensive line wasn't great on that play. But Zach Frazier has looked disciplined. He's looked solid. His biggest mistake was he snapped the ball too early on a silent count when Justin Fields was calling out some adjustments. But that's stuff that, happens for a rookie. You don't want it to happen, but, I'm not going to bark up a tree about that. He knows what he did wrong. I think that's something that'll get fixed, especially as he gets more experience. And this, again, was his first road game in the NFL, as far as preseason wise. So I'm not going to hang too much about that. I did think that it was really good what he did on Cordero Patterson's 31-yard touchdown run. And again, I only got to see the TV angle of this, and a couple people posted it online for replay value, and I was able to just slow it down there. I really want to see the all 22 version when you kind of see in front of and behind the lines, so you can get the proper judgment or visual for the depth of the play and what the angles were for the blocking to work in those situations. But I thought he did a really good job. There was a defensive tackle, I think, in A gap to the left of him and in between him and Isaac Seumalo. And both him and Seumalo start off double teaming the guy, and then Seumalo chips to the backer, seals the backer to the outside. But the tough block there is when Seumalo does that initial chip block to push the guy inside, Zach Frazier has to be strong enough at the point of attack to not just block that guy, but to keep him from getting his outside arm from getting back to the middle gap, because that was where Cordero Patterson was running right behind both of them. So it's one thing for Seumalo to chip and get to the backer. He's the veteran. He's the best offensive lineman on the team. That's what he's supposed to do. But when Zach Frazier gets that hand, is able to keep that hand of the defensive tackle from getting out and obstructing the pass of Cordero Patterson, that opens up the play. And then at that point, because the inside backer's been blocked, because Zach Frazier sealed off the interior defender and the Lions haven't thrown a blitz at the middle part of the field, that opens up a rushing lane for Patterson all the way to the safety. He made one move. The safety was made a bad decision on what angle he was going to attack, and it was a 31-yard touchdown run. And that kind of stuff, though it seems so small, like when you watch the play, it's something so quick, so little. It's not like he pancakes the guy. It's not like he completely dominates, and it doesn't look impressively, super impressive and dominant and physical or anything, but it's small enough to make a difference in the run game like that. And those are the things I think the Steelers have been missing, particularly from their center position since Marquise Pouncey's not been on the team. Having a guy who's strong enough at the point of attack. And those are the things that we said we liked from Zach Frazier when we looked at him in the draft, when we looked at his tape. He wins leverage battles. He gets lower. He's able to overpower guys in those type of spots. And again, doesn't mean he's going to do that all season long, that he's figured it out and he's all pro Zach Frazier. But it does mean that that's a good sign moving forward, and that's a test passed by him that looks good on tape. And that was the thing that we were saying on Friday. I think the Steelers, you're going into this game, you need to put it on tape that you can put together the touchdown drives. And they did 2 drives to start, 2 touchdown drives back to back. That's what you want to see there. So kudos Zach Frazier, kudos Isaac Seumalo. I thought that they were instrumental in that play, and I thought in general they both did well there as well. Now for other guys, I think there was some mixed grades. Now Broderick Jones, I think had some good moments, also had some not great moments. There was, I think, Russell Wilson's first pass, I believe it was, when he went downfield to George Pickens. The whole offensive line gave him a ton of time. Didn't even really have to move his feet much. Broderick Jones did a really good job on his end there on that play. And that was pretty solid. But then there was the sack where Justin Fields took, where Devery Hamilton, backup offensive tackle, who I don't think is making the team, he's playing left tackle. He gets beat, and then the Lions throw a blitz, and I think it was Champlain. I apologize if I'm wrong on who the running back was, but they missed their block. So then you get that edge rusher and the linebacker blitzing in and sacking Justin Fields, and kind of the whole pocket crumbles around him after that, after he's hit and basically plays over. But I think there was some mischaracterized blame in Broderick Jones there. Now, he didn't look great in this rep. I thought he could have been lower in his stance, and I thought that he could have punched better, because I think he took on a blitzing linebacker, and the linebacker punched at him, and Broderick Jones, again, didn't look like he was punching back, but the punch really didn't do much to him. And this time he kind of maintains his balance. And then when the guy realizes he's not going to get around Broderick Jones, he twists back, around other guys and gets caught up in traffic, and he's a non-relevant player in that situation. So, not a great rep from Broderick Jones, but also not a death knell like I saw some people were trying to make it out to be. I thought that was a little over enthusiastic about trying to evaluate him there. But the one thing that I do think speaks out, and again, I got to watch the all 22. I got to break it down. I want to go through it and comb through it and look at it really closely. But I really think that Broderick Jones' big problem is just punching. Footwork wise, he gets it. I think no one can doubt the guy is a heck of an athlete, and he has the size, and we've seen him be nasty. I think his problem is punching, and it kind of points to me that there's still issues with that right arm, which may or may not be something that lingers all season. We don't know. Maybe it's gone by week 1, but I think that problem has persisted for Broderick Jones, and it's something the Steelers should keep a close eye on. But again, I don't think that he looked terrible in this game like he did against the Bills. I think he did better there. Granted, he didn't go up against Aiden Hutchinson all game or something like that, the way he went up against Greg Rousseau. So I think Broderick Jones still has a lot to show. But again, he's part of the offensive unit. They were on the field the first 2 drives. They put in 2 touchdowns with both quarterbacks. I think in general, that's solid. That's a step in the right direction, but they still have work to do. But again, I think Arthur Smith's offense, you saw a little bit more of it in this game, more play action, more run to set up the play action. I think is when we start getting to the regular season and they start finding their rhythm, I think there's more reason to believe in this offense's ability to build momentum and success. Because remember, one thing we talked about last year with Matt Canada's offense was when you thought you saw some success, like when Kenny Pickett would hit a deep ball to George Pickens, or there'd be something good here or there in certain games. We're like, okay, can they build upon that in the next game? Can they show that that's a consistent, that could be a bread and butter? And then it never happened. Whatever they found it's success for in earlier games wasn't success in later games. And if they found any success in later games, it was something completely else. And it just showed you there was no continuity. There was no consistent momentum. There was no, kind of progress that you could just track. It's like, okay, they're getting there. Now they're there. I think that is something that's going to happen with this Arthur Smith offense over time, just by judging what they're trying to do, the way they're organizing things. It's not going to come. They're not going to come out firing out the gate and dropping 50 points on the Falcons in week 1. But I think this is an offense that they might drop 20 to 25 in most of their games. They'll probably have some clunkers here and there. But I think by mid-season, if guys are healthy and they are making the progress they're expected to make, then I think that by then you see this offense, this offensive line and this offense as a whole showing their progress, and then having things that they've built into their offense that are bread and butter plays, and then things that build off those bread and butter plays where hey, there's this one run where, Seumalo pulls and gets to the right gap, and Broderick Jones blocks well, and Zach Frazier is getting linebackers at second level. That play right there, that's what they like to do. And defenses circle, okay, we can't let them get this run play going, because when they do, Najee Harris and Jalen Warren are tough. But then you have play action or multiple play action looks that are built off of said run play. Those are the things I think are coming with Arthur Smith's offense. And we have to see it happen. But just based off of what I've seen in practice, what I've seen in preseason, I think that this offense is a lot more likely to find those answers down the road than what we saw from Matt Canada's offense. But still got a long way to go before we get to any of that. Bottom line is the offense made progress in this preseason game. Defensive line looks nasty, and we still got to see who's going to be fully healthy, ready for week 1 in 2 weeks when the Steelers take on the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta on that Sunday. 2 Sundays from now, if you're watching this Sunday, I guess it is 2 Sundays from now, but it's getting closer and closer. Week 1's almost here. We'll still be getting you ramped up all week long. I'll be at practice at the Steelers facility this week as they get ready for their final week before week 1 officially starts. We'll get you up to date with all that things here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Thanks so much for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast. This has been your post-game reaction show here from the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down your Pittsburgh Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We'll see you Monday with a full new episode ready to go then.